Luke, we're back for another year of predictions. I think last year went better. Uh, I think we did a little bit better. We're getting better at these. So hopefully this year we get everything right and we're good to go. So you've got the questions that gave you very short notice on some of these questions. So you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, thanks for coming on. And I guess we'll just crack on to the first one. Now the first category this season. Last year we did the more or less points than the year before thing, which I thought was fun. But we're not going to do that this season. We're just going to do who wins in these teammate battles, who scores more points. Um, so these will be worth 1 point each. Go through every single team, and then we're going to predict which teammate wins that battle. And we may as well start with the big dogs, Ducati factory team. Luke, Marc Marquez or Pecco Bagnaia, who wins it?
I'm glad you've started there 'cause that's where I've started as well. Um, I've gone Marc Marquez for the factory Ducati team. I think, yeah, it was a close one, but that was the name that just came to my mind straight away. So it's like that's my choice.
I've gone the same. I've gone the same. I think the Marc factory hype is real. It's real, and I mean we've both watched seen testing and stuff like that as well. Not that I buy into testing too much, but in terms of times, but he was very good, very quick, and he looks so relaxed at the moment. Like he's just like confident and relaxed. And I think, yeah, moving on. KTM factory team. Pedro Acosta versus Brad Binder. Who you got?
Again, another close one. It's close last year, but because he's more experienced now, I've gone for Pedro to beat Brad in their teammate battle this year.
I've also done the same. I mean, we're just going to have all the same predictions here. So I don't know, people may as well just watch us something else now because we're just going to have the same of everything. So Pedro for me as well. I think this is the year he really gets it. Like he really explodes this season, I think, into stardom. Um, this one potentially has been made a little bit more difficult, this next one, with what's happened in preseason. Aprilia factory team. Jorge Martin carrying an injury into the season now. I haven't heard the latest. Is he making the first round? I think he'll probably get there. I mean, I don't know. Versus Bezzecchi, a newly reborn factory rider now. Who's going to win this one?
I have gone Marco Bezzecchi.
Okay,
I've
tell me
said it.
why.
I've said it from the start. I don't know why. Just the moment that they both got announced, I thought Bezzecchi would adapt quicker to the Aprilia. I thought he'd get that head start early on. And now it's not the case. Well, I guess it is sort of adapting, but also you don't want to see someone get injured. But Bezzecchi's been almost handed this opportunity now by Jorge being injured to really stamp his authority in the garage and potentially become Aprilia's number one rider for this year if Martin struggles. So I've kind of it was again it was a tough call, but I just think this injury for Martin could set him back quite a long way because what he's done 13 laps this calendar year on the Aprilia so far. And we don't even know he's going to try and ride at round one, but we don't even know if he's going to be fully fit for that. So it'll be an interesting start. So yeah, Marco Bezzecchi's my choice.
It's really interesting that you've gone that way, and I 100% agree with everything you said. I think this is a real shout. The big upset of this list could be Bez beating Martin. I have stuck with Martin, even with potential missing the first round or whatever. I have stuck with him. Uh, but then everything that plays into, the curse of the number one plate and all that, could he have an absolute stinker this season? Um, but I've still gone with him. But I 100% agree. I was so close to going Bez on this one. I agree with everything. I think Bez will be a big surprise this season. I think he's going to be great. And we'll stick with the factory teams. Yamaha.
Yamaha, I think, might have been the easiest out of the factory teams. I'm going Fabio Quartararo. I don't really think need to explain why, other
No,
than
you don't.
I think he's more talented than Rins and more consistent than Rins. So I think that's what you really need to say on that front.
I agree. I've also gone with Fabio. So this one's potentially could go either way. The Honda factory team, the former Repsol team, now Honda HRC.
Yeah, they through pre-season, both their riders, Joan Mir and Luca Marini, have seemed to contradict each other every single test. One test, Marini will be really happy, and Mir will be completely lost. The next test, Marini will be completely lost, and Mir will be really happy with the direction of the Honda. So I'm not. I don't quite know where Honda go from where they are, because the data they seem to be getting for both riders seems to be very different to each other. But from the latest test, I'm going Mir to be the top factory Honda this year, because he seemed to be happier after the Buriram test than Marini.
And, do they dare to dream a little bit Honda? Because it was somewhat promising. They were okay, which is better than the disaster of the last few years. They were okay. So you've gone Mir. I've also gone Mir. I think as for Mir, it's all about whether he stays on the bike, isn't it? If he's got something he can just keep upright, because he's just been so bad with staying on the bike for the last couple of years. But I just think on pace and everything, Marini, despite the fact I thought he did an admirable job last season switching to that bike, he just looks a bit too slow. It just looks a bit too slow on it. But Mir, look, there's a bit of pace there, and if you can find a bit of consistency with finishing races, I think he'll do okay. So we've covered off all of our factory teams now. So the first, we're going to go with a Ducati satellite team because we've got a couple of them to get through. Let's start with the VR46 team. Digi versus Morbidelli. Was this a tough one for you?
Yes and no, in the same sort of way. The injury for Digi has really thrown a spanner in the works for me, because I'm just not sure how it was collarbone, but he'd recently done his shoulder as well, had that fixed. So he's sort of starting to prove that he may be a bit Danny Pedrosa-y in a way of when he crashes, something's going to break. So that worried me a bit. Morbidelli showed really good pace, but I still think Digi's going to get the better of Morbidelli across the year. Again, not sure if Digi's going to be around for the opening round. They haven't really said yet. I think the plan is to obviously have him there, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm going with Digi.
Digi for you. Now, I think this is I flipped a couple of times on this one. I've landed at Frankie. Right. And for the reasons you've stated there, with like a interrupted preseason for Digi. And I think also, we'll probably speak about this as we go on a few times, but this decision from Ducati not to sort of to run the 24 spec engines and whatever else they're running. I know the factory bike will have a few bits different. So Digi will get access to them, I'm assuming, with being a Ducati contracted rider. So he might have a few bits that Frankie doesn't have, but the difference isn't going to be that big. And then, like you said, with the injury issues, slow start to the season, and Morbidelli having a promising go of it last season, and then like a good preseason. And I think on pure talent, like if you just take the two of them at their very absolute peaks of what we've seen, I think Frankie's probably a better rider. Whether he ever gets her again, we don't know. But with the sort of these circumstances, with like the 24 and the 25 bikes not being that big of a difference, perhaps as what it was last season, and then, so he's already got to be closer to him in that sense. And then with Digi with some injuries and stuff, interrupted preseason, I think Frankie might get a jump on him. and hold on. Yeah, and so we'll move on now. Let's go to the big change of the preseason or the postseason or off season. The Pramac, the big switch, the big signing by Yamaha to bring in Pramac. Jack Miller, they've gone for experience. Jack Miller and Miguel Oliveira. This is quite possibly the hardest one for me, anyway.
In the short time I've had, I've flipped a few times. Even while I'm sat here right now, I'm debating changing my mind. But I'm going to stick to the man I've got written down, and I'm going to go with Jack Miller.
Okay.
I think he potentially had a bit more promise in preseason. Obviously, testing times don't mean anything. Things could change dramatically at round one. But I think Jack's seemed to have clicked quicker with the Yamaha. In Barcelona at the end of the 24 season, he looked nowhere near it. He was slower than some rookies at the first test, technically, of the year. But as soon as, they come to Malaysia, he has the 2 days, I think he did at the shakedown, and the 3 extra days, obviously the 2 days at Buriram. And now things just look more, Jack just looks more confident on the bike. He looks at home. He's back at home in Pramac, you could say, I guess. So yeah, I think I'll go with him. Whether he'll keep his seat at Pramac for 2026 is another whole other conversation for a later date, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean that is a great question. I've also gone for Jack. Even just hearing him talk after, he just seems happy. He just seems a lot happier. I'm not saying that Miguel's probably the same. Just I haven't heard much from him. That's all. But yeah, he just seems pretty relaxed about the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, and in terms of him, keeping that seat, I think he will genuinely have to beat Miguel like pretty well, I think, for them to not start looking elsewhere. And Yamaha has to start looking at bringing in some, we've developed the bike for a year with 2 older guys and experienced guys, and now we can look to bring in a nice, fresh talent, young talent. So, yeah, whether he keeps or not, but I think he's going to, I think he's going to be okay this season. I think he's going to be okay. And I hope he does really well. Because, yeah, I'd love to see him stay on the grid another year, obviously. Love to. Grissini. Can Thurman the Vermin do anything in his debut season to beat or outscore Alex Marquez, very experienced rider?
I'm just no. And I think Fermi is very, he's looked good in testing. Again, like I said earlier, testing means nothing realistically. It's just a sort of an early indicator of who could potentially be where. But we've always had this thing with Fermi where inconsistencies creep in. But then Alex Marquez has been similar. But I think something's clicked this year for Alex. Whether he's now out of his brother's shadow in the Grissini team, whether that held him back for a year. But yeah, I think Alex Marquez is gonna outscore his rookie teammate. How close it'll be, I'm not too sure yet.
Yeah, and you'd be forgiven for thinking I'm an Alex Marquez hater here because I don't know if you saw my last video where I ranked the riders and stuff. I did put him pretty low. And here I'm actually gonna take a bit of a risk and say that Aldiguer's gonna outscore him. I've not really any evidence or basis for it. It's just a hunch that I think he's going to take to it really well. I'm not sure why exactly. And Alex Marquez is really solid. So, and he scores a lot of, he does finish at the points a lot, Alex Marquez. So, I don't know why I've gone for this, but I just thought maybe this might be one of the ones where I go for a bit of an outsider. But yeah, I mean, I can't argue against what you said, but yeah, I've still gone for Aldiguer. So there's a bit of a different one for us. Okay. This one, I don't know if I really need to ask. LCR Honda?
Yeah, it's going to be Joan Zarco.
Yes. I mean,
It sounds bad how confidently I've said that, but unless something terrible happens to Zarco in the early stages of this season, which hopefully does, we all like Zarco, um, then I just don't see Chantra getting the better of Zarco at all. He seemed nowhere near it, and near him at all on the timesheets. He's been consistently the slowest rider, close to like Lorenzo Savadori pace, who's the Aprilia test rider. So, yeah, I don't think things will click for Chantra this year, and it could be a pretty embarrassing year. But just summarize the position that Honda are in and have been in for the last few years.
yeah, I think it's going to be tough for him. I think it's going to be really, really tough. It's yeah, it's like Zarco. I mean, Zarco's a real chance to be the best Honda, really. So I don't think Chantra's going to get anywhere near the three of them, to be honest. I mean, I think he's a really likable young guy. I really like him, but Chantra, but I just can't see where it's going to come from for him. I think he's going to be off it most of the season. Okay, Trackhouse, another rookie. I know you're a big Ayagura guy. Can he do something against Raul Fernandez?
I have him down as being the top Trackhouse rider.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear.
Very similar reasonings, I suppose, for you picking out again over Alex Marquez. Raul's not really clicked yet, has he? And it's weird to
No.
say that because what's this going to be? His third year of MotoGP now? It's just not nothing. Is it third or fourth? It's been a while now for him. And whether
Well,
it
it
was,
came in the Gardner year, and it was him and Remy come up. So when was that?
yeah, was
Because
that the
Gardner's not been in it for ages.
was that the 22 season he came up?
It might have been. Oh, I'm gonna have
Because
to. Someone get in the comments. Help us out.
he got pulled in too early. Let's face it. KTM pulled him up, thinking, we need to keep hold of him. Let's give him a MotoGP. That's the reality of what happened. And I think things just haven't gone his way since. He's suffered with injuries. He's suffered with confusion of being given an RSGP 2024 midway through the season last year after getting pretty comfortable with the 23 edition, which I don't think helped at all. But I just think Kagura is going to come in. He's going to be very logical about his decisions. We've already heard from testing that he came in after his first ever run on the MotoGP bike, sat down and just didn't speak to anyone, wouldn't give feedback for a few minutes until he'd thought everything through in his mind that he wanted to say. So, yeah, I think he's going to have a special rookie season. Not a Costa special, but like a strong, consistent, top 10 challenging rookie season.
I mean, you've almost made me change my mind there. I've gone for Fernandez. I think this could be. I mean, it kind of almost, in a way, I'm doing it because it kind of needs to be his breakout year. Like it needs to happen this year. Especially when you like the Aprilia is a very, from all reports, a very rideable bike. You think a guy with a bit of natural talent can get on a bike like that and maybe try and show something. And he really, here and there, maybe, when he was running at the front in Barcelona, I want to say, was it? Yeah, I think so. And he just showed real good pace in that, but it was so like once or twice. And then the rest of it was a bit, not there. But there's no doubt there's a talent there. There's just like what's happened to it. It's very much must be like a confidence thing mostly, I guess. But yeah, I think just in the sense that it has to be his breakout year, I've gone for him. But again, I agree with everything you said about Agura. I think he could be the sort of level-headed kind of guy that just you can see in MotoGP for a long time once he gets in there because it's just solid and teams like that kind of thing and the consistency and stuff. So I think that could be it could be a big year for Agura as well. I agree. Tech 3, Tech 3. This is an interesting one. Bastianini versus Vinales.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. Weirdly, this is one of the ones that I didn't really debate over much when I was figuring out. I think it's going to be Vinales. And I know I know he's been this, and he probably will be again, this inconsistent rider, but Bastianini's just not figured it out yet. He keeps saying that um he's riding the KTM wrong. All the way through preseason, he said, I'm riding it wrong. I'm riding it wrong. I don't want them to make it like a Ducati, but I'm riding the KTM wrong. And then Vinales on the last day, he'd been riding it wrong all the way through preseason. He admitted it himself. But on the last day, he said things clicked. And he'd even said, I think 2 days before, that it will just click eventually. And it looked like it finally did for him. Whereas Bastianini's still searching for whatever feeling he's after that he just can't seem to find because he doesn't want it to be a Ducati. He wants it to be a KTM, but he can't seem to find the middle ground that he needs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't take much of that into account, to be honest. So you've logicked it. And I've gone for Bastianini just because I'm like, I like him. I think he's good. Yeah. I mean, after hearing you say that, I didn't really think about all that, to be honest. But yeah, it does make a little bit of a concern for Bastianini. But let's hope he figures it out. If he does, we know how quick he is. And then Vinales, I just get so annoyed with him, you know. Maybe it's just because I just like, screw this guy. It's just going to be all. He's going to try and like blow the bike up or something. Like, we don't know what's going to happen at some point during the season. So, you know. All right, well, that's all the teams done. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. We've differed on a few. Okay. Now, of all those that you've gone through, there's another point on offer here. Which, I mean, this could be a bit too easy. Which teammate is going to have the biggest points gap?
See, I had thought about the LCR Honda team, and I think that might be the obvious sort of choice. But then I'm also then thinking, what if Honda have a bad year again? And what if Zarco only scores like 50 points and Chantra scores 2? Then that gap's, it's still only the 48-point gap. So I'm going to go with the Monster Energy Yamaha team. I don't know if Rins is going to figure it out. He looked stronger in preseason, but we've seen this from Rins before. So I think Quartararo is going to, be the dominant force in the Yamaha camp.
Exact same thought process for me. Exact same. I was like, first thing I was like, LCR, done. Write it off. But I'm like, what if he only scores 20 points? Zarco. And it's like, well, hang on. By the looks of it, the Yamaha could at least be a consistent point scorer. And so if it is a consistent point scorer, and one of the bikes is finishing sort of in the lower points positions, and that's, or even around the top 10, bottom of the top 10, and the other one's a bit off it, then that one's not finishing in the points. And then you've got a guy scoring 60, 70 points and another guy scoring maybe like 10. So I also went for Yamaha. Because I think Rins is great, but I'm just trying to see where else there's going to be a bigger gap. Again, just there's no confidence in Honda for me. That's what it is. So yeah. Yeah, so I've ended up on the same thing. Now, what's going to be the tightest gap between two teammates?
I've gone for one that I think it might have been last year. Or am I going to go with that? See, I'm torn between two, and it's two factory teams. I'm torn at the moment between HRC and the factory Aprilia team. And I think I'm going to go with HRC. Again,
Okay.
purely the potential no confidence in HRC, because I feel like we could see a gap as small as like 3 points between those two with how
one scores 12 and one scores 9, and it's like done. Yeah.
That's very possible situation that we might end the year in.
Yeah, and I think the other obvious candidates are like Pramac, because it's hard to split Jack and Oliveira, isn't it? Maybe even Trackhouse, I guess. I mean, you could even look at, things like Marc and Pecco if they're fighting for the title. Could be end up the season with like 15 points in it. And you're like, well, that could be it. And like you said, Martin and Bez, I've actually gone for, because I've picked a bit of an upset in who's going to win this teammate battle. I'm like, he's only just going to pip him. Like, I'm talking like 10 points. Aldeguer over Marquez at Grissini, just to pip him. So interesting. I think it is one of those years where there quite possibly is a lot more close teammate battles than we've had previously. But yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting one. What was next on our list here? Oh, we're getting into like the results, like race wins and stuff now. So who wins the most Grand Prix this season?
See, I've gone with the same person as last year, and this may be a bit unusual compared to what a lot of people think, but I'm going to go Francesco Bagnaia to win the most Grand Prix.
Yeah. He is a Grand Prix winner. He's just just wins races. That doesn't mean he finishes a lot of races, but he wins a lot, you know. How many races Grand Prix did he actually finish last season? He won 11 of them or something like that. Madness. So yeah, he does have that in him. I've gone for Marc, just because I think he just genuinely is going to be quicker and better than everyone else. And I suppose that will translate into, but again, it's like, Pecco does. Yeah, I can see why you're getting Pecco. Sprint wins. Who gets the most sprint wins?
I've gone Marquez. I think Saturday's his territory. It always, when he has been on good form, and when you think he is a Honda, the Saturday was his territory. He'd put in that one lap in qualifying. You knew that it was going to be done already, but I feel like the sprint is going to be where he excels over Pecco, and obviously Pecco's inconsistency in sprints, where that seems to be the day where he takes longer to figure things out. So yeah, I'm going to go Marquez on the sprint wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think Marc is so well suited to the sprint format. I've got him as most sprint wins as well. So I guess you know where my predictions are going this year. Most pole positions.
Yeah, I'm going to follow very similar sort of format. I'm going to go Marquez with the pole positions. Like I just said, seems like Saturday is going to be his day for me this year.
Yep, I've gone for Pecco.
Nice. Okay.
Just I just wanted to mix it up a bit. Although I think outright pace, I think Marc's got him covered. I don't know why. Probably the smart bet is Marquez, but and look, the only way for this, it'd be nice to be able to predict someone else in these sort of three questions. Maybe like a Martin or Bez or whoever, Pedro, maybe. But it just does feel like the Ducati is still much better, doesn't it? Especially with those two on it. And then the lack of challenge from the satellite teams now. Where it's not like you've got Martin on the third bike now, is it? Like, it's Digi. So
I don't see him doing a Martin. No, just yeah.
So if Ducati are going to go and win 19 Grand Prix this year, they're probably going to win 8 each. There's not a challenge coming from another Ducati. It's just them two. I've got this on again this year, and it's the wooden spoon. Full-time rider with the least points. I think we know it could be 0, couldn't it?
It could be 0. And I'm assuming we've got the same person. The rookie Somkat Chantra. I'm assuming he's got now.
Yep. So this was a bit of a gimme one. We could have taken that off this year, to be fair. Well, look, again, I hope he surprises me. I don't think he will. Now let's get into our world champions. And we're going to change tact a little bit here. We're going to move from MotoGP to Moto3. Who's your Moto3 world champion? I think this is an interesting discussion because going through it again this morning after I had a look last night, is it the strongest field? Is there a superstar in there?
I think there is a superstar in that.
Okay. Tell me about it.
believe and hope Piqueiras is going to
Okay.
be the Moto3 world champion. Um, I just his rookie year on a Leopard last year, the Honda clearly wasn't the bike to be on. We all saw that from Moto3. He's now jumping onto a KTM. Think things are going to be a bit easier for him, maybe. David Alonso's gone, which is the the big one. Yeah, Alonso, Holgado, Colin Vire, they're all gone now. The big three from last year. So and Tola as well got through him in that mix of the big four, sort of, I guess. So yeah, I reckon Piqueiras is going to be the not David Alonso level superstar, but he will be the definite standout and world champion for Moto3 this year.
I agree. I've picked Piqueiras as well. I think he is a standout talent, as you said, sort of in that field at the moment. There is some interesting factors though here. I think it's a really interesting one because you look at, I mean, Rueda comes to mind, I guess, as well, but he hasn't been particularly as convincing as Piqueiras last season, I don't think, and his time in Moto3. I mean, and then there's really like, I mean, guys who have showed a little glimpse, like Furusato maybe. And then the real interesting one for me, the one that it was between Piqueiras for me, Piqueiras and this guy, and it's the returning Foggia. And I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had with him coming back. I don't know. It could be these things going one of two ways, isn't it? It's like he either goes back and he stinks, or he goes back and he's like, I'm back to win the world championship, and he just picks up where he left off, coming back with like maybe gone from Moto2 bike back to Moto3 bike. It just feels maybe a bit easier. I don't know. So I think that's an interesting one. But yeah, it really didn't feel like there was really other than, I mean, Piqueiras feels like a bit of a standout. But again, not on the level that we maybe have had in the past few years with some of the riders. Because even if you look at, like you said, that crop that's just gone up, those four guys, any one of them stayed in it this season, you'd be like, yeah, him. Either Ortola, Via, who else did you say? Maybe Alonso. We know Alonso was going up. Who was the other one?
Holgado.
Yeah, Holgado. Yep. You just like any one of them is definitely winning that. But it's made it a bit harder with them all going up. Now, who's your Moto2 world champion? Tell me how your thought process went here, because I've got some thoughts.
I'm gonna go with Jake Dixon.
I knew you were. I knew it.
Yeah. It's I was torn between Dixon and Kennett, and also Manuel Gonzalez was another rider that had also crossed my mind. Could say I kind of went for Dixon because he's British, but there's also just that thing of the Mark VDS team are just good. We know they're good. We know the Boston Scuro chassis is good. It proved itself last year with Agura. And I don't know, seeing Jake on that bike, we've seen a couple of pictures from the Portimao test where he was on it. I just got thoughts that year and loads. Had that dominant year with them where he ended up losing out on the title because he crashed, and I think he broke his shoulder that year or collarbone at like the penultimate round. But I just got thoughts back to that and the experience of watching Sam fight for that title. So I'm just hoping to see the same again from Jake this year.
Well, you'll be surprised to know I even flirted with the idea of Jake Dixon winning the world championship this season. I've not gone for him, but I think this is a really big year for some of these guys, because this could be it. There's a group of them, I think you can throw a blanket over them, who you can have in this conversation this season. It's Jake Dixon, like Joe Roberts, Tony Arbolino, Aaron Canet. Like this is the year you got to do it. It's the year before Alonso figures it out, right? It's the gap year, you know. Unless Alonso just figures it out. Did you think about Alonso winning it first up? No, it's too hard these days.
I looked at a few of his times from the test. He's still recovering from an injury as well, is the main thing. So I don't know how slow he's taking things. But I just think they could be a little too early for Alonso to work it out. Maybe towards the second half of the year, he'll start putting in strong performances, but I just don't think. I think this year's a bit too early.
I agree. I've actually, like I said, all those guys I mentioned and more, with like Canet, Gonzalez, like you mentioned, all those guys, even like guys like Marcus Ramirez who show a bit sometimes and stuff like that. They're all there or thereabouts. I think it will be a big, tight fight between that group of experienced guys this season, right before next season when Alonso via Ortola will hopefully figure it out. I've actually gone for Sergio Garcia. As return to form, reset, clear his head. I think on talent, he's probably like this guy that's come through like Moto3 as a top guy into Moto2, became a top guy, and then somehow something happened last season. And he crashed, got the injury and all that, and really didn't get back to his best. But I think with the break, reset your head, come back. I think he's probably better at his best than the other guys, possibly. So I'm going to go with him to just stay fit all season, get a good start to the season, and carry on. Because he did look extremely good last season when he was getting it right at the start of the season, didn't he? And I think hopefully he gets back to that. So yeah, Sergio Garcia for me, Jake Dixon for yourself. And I think this is going to be real close. Like, throw a blanket over 5 or 6 of them, maybe 7. That can genuinely, I think, are in the conversation. Even like Alonso Lopez and guys like that. There's so many. I'm still thinking of more of them that are like going to be there winning races this season. Really interesting times for Moto2. Really interesting. MotoGP World Champion. Which one is it?
Marc Marquez. I think it's going to be the 9th. I know I said Pecco would win more Grand Prix, but he won more Grand Prix last year, didn't win the title, as we all well know. I think Marc, even if Marc, how many Grand Prix are there this year? 22, supposedly?
Yeah.
Whether
yeah
all
well,
22 will
we'll
go
see.
ahead.
Yeah.
Even if Pecco wins, say, 10, Marc wins 9 Grand Prix, but Marc finishes second to Pecco in all of those races, Pecco's going to probably crash in a few because that inconsistency will probably slip out again. So yeah, I think Marc Marquez, he's on the best bike. He is, I was going to say arguably, but he probably is the most talented rider on the grid. I'd have to say Quartararo is probably the other one that's challenging him on raw talent. So yeah, I just think this is going to be the year that Marc gets that elusive 9th that's he's sort of missed out on for the last few years.
Yeah, I've got him as well. I've got Marc as well. For me, it just feels like who's stopping. I know Pecco. Look, it will be a fight between the two of them. Like I said, with the other manufacturers, I don't see where it's coming from this season anyway. Especially with an interrupted start for Martin, you'd be like, could Martin pull something out of the bag? If he had a full uninterrupted preseason and Aprilia looked like they'd really taken a step, you'd be like, well, it's on here. But no, I don't see it. Marc Marquez for me as well. I hate to say, I think it'll be pretty straightforward. I think he'll probably win as many, if not more, Grand Prix, like I predicted earlier, as Pecco. I think the only way Pecco really does or can get the better of Marc is if he's got to get a bit of a mongrel in him, doesn't he? Like, he's too polite. You've really got to fight Marc. You've got to scrap him. You've got to unsettle him. And not that he gets unsettled by stuff like that. He gives it twice as much as he gets it. But you've really got to be able to take risks with him and make him make mistakes if you can. Because he does have crashes in him, Marc. He absolutely does. He has brain fades and explosions in his head and rash decision-making, misjudgments. He has all that in his game. But unless you make him display some of that, he's just gonna beat you. So yeah, I've got Marc. And then of those 3 world champions, we're talking Grand Prix only. So we won't count sprint points in this. Which one scores the most points?
This point's quite And yeah, Marquez probably. Again, I know I said Pecco's going to win more, but the consistency thing I think is going to creep in for Marc. I wouldn't be very surprised if we saw a season from Marc like he had in 2019, where he only finished off the podium in, was it one race? And that's because he crashed in America. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a year like that for Marc again this year.
Yeah, I think the only way that it wasn't going to be this season just Marc versus Pecco is, like I said, if Martin had stayed at Ducati on a latest spec bike, I guess, or even a 24 bike these days, because it's pretty much the same, and was able to challenge them with no other challenges from within the Ducati group other than Pecco. And with, I think, across Moto2 and Moto3, like I said, that Moto2 season is going to be like 2 wins could win you the world championship this season. Like, there's going to be spread wins between all 5 or 6 of those guys. And then Piqueiras, whilst he probably is the one where you're like, well, he could be the one that just dominates his. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't feel like the strongest field. While he could dominate it, I think, again, it will be a bit scrappy in that. I don't know if he'll be as convincing a world champion as Marc will be this season. So I've also gone for Marc to be the most points scored across the 3 classes on a Sunday. Now, I did tell you, Luke, we do have a mystery bonus point question category for this season. And it comes on the back of last season, me monumentally screwing up and not doing what I was supposed to do in order to award a point to one of us for this question. It was the best race of the season. I was going to put it to a vote, and I forgot to do it before we recorded our results. Now, I did do a vote after that. You may have seen it. You did win. Phillip Island was given race of the season by the fans and voters of the channel. I was a bit disappointed why it didn't go to Le Mans in the end, because after we did talk about it and I watched it back, Le Mans was a cracker. It was awesome. So was Phillip Island. So people voted Phillip Island as the best race of the season. So I think we finished tied on points last season because of that. So there was no winner. There was no winner last season. Now, this year, a few different tracks coming in. Can we see an outsider come in and win best race of the season? I actually am going to put it to a vote at the end of the season. Remind me if I don't do it. Either you, Luke, or someone send me a message. Someone put in the comments. Don't forget, before you record your results, do a poll so we can figure out who the best race of the season was, voted by the people. So can one of the new tracks deliver one of the best races this season, or are you going to stay safe and stick with one of the old faithfuls?
I'm going to go. I think you might have gone with this as well, purely out of just hope. I'm going to go with Brno being the race of the season. It always did deliver good racing. And I think the fact that I'd say the majority of the grid now probably hasn't ridden. Well, it definitely haven't ridden Brno on their current MotoGP machines. So I feel like that will just spice things up a bit, and some people may not be where they expect to be, and it may catch a few people out. So yeah, I'm going to go with Brno as the race of the season. I think it'll be nice and close racing then.
I sincerely hope you're right, Luke. I sincerely do.
If it happens.
Well, just don't say that, because I've bought my tickets and my flights and my hotels now. So, Jesus, if it doesn't go ahead now, I'm down a lot of money. But anyway, I actually didn't go for Brno.
Okay.
I obviously was going to, and then I was like, actually, let me not go for that. Because I'm stubborn, I've gone for Le Mans.
Right. Yeah.
So 2 years in a row for me, just to do the business this season. So obviously, it could end up being not any of these races. They might not even be in the top 4 or 5 best race of the season. So what we'll do is we'll put the poll up of the best race of the season. We'll put our 2 races on anyway, even if they were shit. And then which one gets the most votes out of our 2 races is going to win. Okay? Because you watch it just be Phillip Island again. Just always is, isn't it? Always is. But Well, that's all the questions. That's all the predictions done. Do you have any topics you wanted to talk about? Maybe things you think are important before we go into the start of next season?
I think the main thing we need to look at going into next season is the whole engine thing with Ducati. It's been a big talking point.
It's massive, I think.
There were a few people didn't believe it when it started happening. I know BSN, we got accused of clickbait when
Okay.
when the whole thing came about. But it's happened. It's locked in. They're going to be using the GP24s on the factory bikes. All the Ducati are going to be GP24. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal for Ducati. The GP24 was so good. It was just as a rough sort of estimate. The GP24, let's say, was half a second everywhere else than every other manufacturer last season. I don't think Aprilia have made up that much of a gap. Let's say they've made up 0.2. Okay, that still leaves Ducati with 0.3 seconds everywhere else. Even if it's as small as they've got a tenth over Aprilia, they're still going to have that margin, is what I'm trying to get at. So I don't think Ducati fans or anyone that's trying to write Ducati off now should be. I don't think there's any reason to be worried. I still think they've got the better rider combination in their factory team. Their bike's still probably going to be superior. It's 26 that we need to look at for them. And they'll still be using their 24 engine in 26, but obviously that's another matter for Ducati. But for this year, shouldn't be worried. I think it will still be, whether you like it or you hate it, it'll be another Ducati show, I think, this year.
Yeah. Is it just because obviously once they decide this, they are stuck with it now until, is it 27, isn't it? Like you said. Would it, I mean, they'll know obviously better than I do. They'll have their reasons. Is it something that they think it's maybe just safer to try and win it these 2 years on the current one than trying to introduce a new one? And then if it don't get it right, then you're on the back foot for 2 years. Which is really interesting because it's like, I mean, I'd love to sit down with one of them and just have a chat. You know, it's like, surely anything you've developed for a 25 bike is just generally going to be better. But I guess it's not ever always that as simple as you think, is it? It's like there's a lot of, well, so to speak, moving parts that have to sort of work out right. And so I think even, like you said, their advantage is so big from last season. It's like they could possibly go 2 seasons without developing that engine and still be the best.
Yeah, there is, because obviously Aprilia and KTM can't develop their engine any further either, because the only ones that can are Yamaha and Honda due to the concessions. Yeah, I think the main point that I picked up on from listening to the rider debriefs after the Buriram test was Marc wasn't 100% sure. He'd obviously tested the 24 and the 25 side by side. He didn't race on the 24 last year, obviously. But he tried them side by side. He wasn't 100% sure on the 25, didn't want to homologate it. But at the point nothing was announced, it was just kind of, this might happen. And then after it was announced, Pecco came to the media and said, look, I lied. I never liked the GP25 engine. I just didn't want to say anything. And yeah, I think what was it? His wording was pretty much, I need to be honest, I've been a bit of a liar, was what he said. And at first you're like, okay, but why? And then you're like, oh, yeah, to be fair, he doesn't want to give up any advantage he might have. You know, he doesn't want the other manufacturers to think they're weakened where they're at. He obviously doesn't want to slag off Ducati. He's contracted to them, is the main thing. He's been with them for his whole MotoGP career. But yeah, I think that was the most damning part when Marc came out, you know, I'm not 100%. And then Pecco even joined in after and was like, look, I never liked it. I think he always said, I was convinced from the start that the 24 was better. So that was the two big ones there.
Yeah. And it just goes to show you how difficult it is to actually produce something that's better than something you've got at this level. You know, it just, according to them, like maybe if they had a bit more time, they'd be like, yeah, we'll crack on with it. If we can start developing that then beyond 27. But it's like, it's a freeze now anyway. We may as well just freeze. And like you said, Yamaha is a big factor because more so than Honda, because the talk of them developing the V4 and all that, maybe there is a big step to be made there. Maybe they can be caught. But obviously, like you said, now the teams that are closest to them can't actually make that step with the engine. Obviously, you can change other parts of the bike. That's not locked in,
Yeah, the other big part was they didn't like the chassis or the aero for the 25 either. That was and I think they ended up deciding they're going to go with the 24 spec. So I think, what was it? Davide Tardozzi said the only things that have changed on the 25 bike are some stuff to do with the electronics. Obviously, he'll never go into what that would be, and parts of the suspension.
I saw that interview. Yeah.
That's the only thing that's changed. So,
and that's the thing where it's like, you maybe could have seen someone challenge Marc and Pecco from that Ducati lineup, had they hung on to Pramac possibly. You know what I mean? Because the gap between the two bikes is not going to be as big now. But then, like, the quality of rider is bigger in terms of the gap from first team to second team. So, yeah, it is really interesting. It is, and it's kind of, it's a weird one where it's like, do the chasing teams now have less hope that they've stuck with the one that they know is going to be great instead of risking going to a 25 engine and not getting it right? It's a bizarre situation where you're like, well, actually, they probably have less hope now because they know they can't get to that. But if they stuffed up the 25 and went with it, it's like, well, we could have got it. Tough one.
Yeah.
It's just going to be Ducati for another 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah. That was the main sort of talking point. Definitely, everyone wanted to know what was happening. So, looking throughout the other parts of the grid, I don't think there's much. Maybe KTM's taken a step backwards. That was there's been,
and we still are very much in doubt about their future, are we not?
Yeah. From brief sort of, and then team launch, which is always going to be positive. Piqueiras spoke to the media. I think we're on a Zoom call with him for about an hour. But we had the chance to ask him what was happening. He seemed very positive. Obviously, he would be. But he said, we're not in MotoGP just to be here for the next 1 or 2 years. I want KTM to be in MotoGP forever. Is basically what he ended. He could have started it with that, but that's basically what he ended the call with, and it made sense. Everything he was saying, obviously, it was PR speak. Everything he was saying seemed positive, so I think they will be around. Yeah, their main issue at the moment is tire. The pictures that I've seen of KTM's tires after some runs, they were after race runs. There has been talk that they did practice starts, they did burnouts on them, whatever. People have said that the tires we've seen images of, which were badly degraded down the middle, have been from race runs. So, I don't know if that's fair. Just what we've been told, what we've heard. Not sure if that's official as such, but yeah, that looks like the big point that KTM might suffer with this year. So they may have gone from rear chatter being an issue to rear tire wear being a big issue for this year. So
I seriously think they just need Pedro to make up the difference, I think, for them. As much as I like the other three guys in terms of their quality, I think they're all pretty good, especially Brad. I mean, you really need a superstar to take that by the scruff of the neck, don't you, and to get you some results, to get you near the front. And then I guess the only other big talking point from testing is people got a little bit excited about Yamaha, didn't they, with Fabio's sort of comfort and pace. Is there anything real there?
I think there's reality that. Sorry, I just realized the light is getting very close to my camera. Um, yeah, I think there's definite real pace from Fabio. Not total challenging pace. I'm gonna stamp out immediately. Top 5 potential, I would have put
Okay.
in the championship. Whether he'll reach that and whether Yamaha will reach that, whether they'll keep it going. Yeah, I think look, all the talk about their engines are good. It's an inline four, but even Jack Miller and Fabio have both said maybe we don't need to change. Like Jack called it a fad. The whole thing of do we need a V4? Do we not need a
Right.
V4? Fabio said we need to be cautious when making the decision. He's clearly worried that Yamaha are going to go, yeah, we've got a V4, we're using it, and not take the time. So, yeah, I think they're making the right steps. They're not there to fight. They're not going to challenge Marc and Pecco. Top 5 in the championship is their ceiling, I want to say. That's the highest they're going to reach. Reality, it'd be nice if they can get back in the top 10 in the championship because they weren't
Yeah.
last year. So, yeah, that's like, yeah, that would be my minimum expectation for Yamaha this year. Top 5 is the highest. Top 10 is my lowest minimum for them.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that you've gone as high as top 5. I mean, I guess when you talk about Fabio, the bike might only be here, but he can get it up here a little bit. So it's always on for him when you've got a guy like an asset like Fabio in your team. You can extract a bit more than maybe results wise than what you should have done. Do you have? I mean, they're such an interesting case, like you said. Is it worth taking the risk on the V4? Is it worth just not bothering with that now until you get to the end of this, engine freeze period for the new regulations 27 and stuff like that?
Yeah, again,
And let's not forget, sorry to interrupt, but let's forget, like, it's not like an inline four can't be competitive. Suzuki, as far as I remember, was that an inline four?
yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah, it was an inline four when Fabio won the championship on it. So it it can be done. It's yeah, which is basically what Jack and Fabio were trying to get across. We can't basically say this V4 is going to change. It's going to, it's going to create more problems, but it might fix some problems. That's basically what Fabio was saying as well. That
Yeah.
it's not going to fix all of our issues, and it's not going to, it's going to create more. Jack likes obviously he might not be that, but Jack likes the style of the inline four. He realized that he can turn the bike. So it's still clearly got that over the V4s that may have been lost in recent years because of where Yamaha have been, but they clearly still have this ability to turn better because Jack's noticing it over the KTM. He's noticing it over the Ducati he's ridden in the past. So yeah, I think it will be a tough decision for Yamaha. Again, someone who's paid a lot more money than I am. Yeah, a journalist and write all of these thoughts and what they're saying now. Someone a lot higher up will make that decision, and
Yeah.
it will take a lot of time. But there is a chance that we may not see it until the new regulations. So
Yep. Yep. And I guess it's one of those things like you can say what you want, like get that engine in it, but it's a better engine technically, or it delivers the power in this way, or it's got more horsepower generally, or whatever. If the bones aren't right, then it doesn't matter anyway. You got to put that to the road. Yeah, so it might be interesting to see how they decision they make going forward there. So what order do you have the teams in at the moment? Like the bikes, where do you have everyone? I mean, obviously Ducati's the best, but like where do you slot Yamaha into that list?
I think at the moment I've got Ducati number 1, I've got Aprilia number 2, and then as the season goes on, this may flip. I think KTM 3 for now, Yamaha 4 for now, and Honda 5th. I still think Honda are that little bit further behind. I think Yamaha and KTM could be interchangeable as it goes on, but I think Aprilia are that step ahead, and Ducati.
Yeah, I think Ducati, Aprilia, and Honda slot themselves in pretty comfortably. But yeah, Yamaha is the one where like have they made the ground in terms of being able to catch the bike in front of them. So yeah, my All Japan Cup might not be a thing this year because it was good last year because the Yamahas and the Hondas were pretty close, but you might have to do a Japan versus Austria Cup or something.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I can't quite make up my mind yet where it'll be because Pedro Acosta's shown flashes of brilliance as he always does, but I think Binder may have taken a step back. That's the honest.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It was like, yeah, Yamaha could get themselves slotting in above the KTM because of the quality of Fabio and stuff like that. It was like, well, the quality of Pedro might also do that for KTM. You know, he certainly, like I said, I think this season he will be a season where he really breaks out. But you've got to have the bike underneath you to do it, I suppose, as well. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Well, Luke, was there anything else? So you've covered everything.
That's everything that needs to be covered.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks for coming on again.
No, thank you for having me.
You've been a busy man, so thanks for squeezing me in today. And we'll see you at some point during the season if you want to come back on a bit of a mid-season review or whatever. And then we'll go through our results at the end of the season. Thank you very much. And we'll see everybody on the next video, whenever that is. Enjoy the first round. Take it easy.